You are about to enter a world of dreamscapes and nightmares. A world where the surreal is real, and you will encounter things humanity was never meant to know. Prepare to have your fragile illusions of reality shattered as you cross over into the nightmare realm.
Christmas Eve Ill. For most people, Christmas Eve is a time to spend at home with family and friends. For others, like the staff and patrons of Melville's Diner in Palace Flats, New Mexico, it is a lonely day, spent trying to find even a small amount of human contact to counteract the dreariness of yet another Yuletide season. Be careful what you wish for, because not all gatherings are festive on Christmas Eve. Some are in fact quite frightening. Emily Foster has been a waitress at Melville since she was a junior in high school and has recently turned 23. She stands behind the counter, looking bored as she refills salt and pepper shakers. She wears a red ribbon to tie back her long blonde hair and a white apron containing a notepad, a few pens, and a handful of straws around her waist. She notices the coffee pot is nearly empty, but lacks the motivation to brew another batch. Melville's is the last place she wants to spend her Christmas Eve. She would much rather be at her grandmother's house, eating fresh-baked chocolate chip cookies and sipping eggnog, than eating stale cheesecake and drinking burnt coffee. Working on Christmas Eve is awful, but at least Emily wasn't doing it alone. Eddie Miller is the head cook at Melville's, though from the grease and ketchup stains on his white v-neck t-shirt, it would not necessarily be apparent. He is in the kitchen, slicing onions, though they are not why his eyes are watering. Eddie's wife left him this morning. She packed her things and left while he was working the graveyard shift the night before. A note she left said she was just not in love with him anymore and had to leave. She went to stay with her sister in Arizona and asked him not to try and contact her. Eddie, unlike Emily, was glad he was working tonight, because he did not think he could survive this Christmas Eve alone. The front door to the diner opens, causing a little bell to ring. In walks an old man in a brown tweed suit, thick eyeglasses, and a black bow tie.
Hey, Mr. Wilkins.
Emily says as the man walks over to a nearby booth.
Merry Christmas, Emily.
The man says as he smiles and sits down.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you too.
Emily adds, unenthusiastically, as she makes her way to Mr. Wilkins's booth. Suddenly, a man appearing to be in his late 40s stumbles into the diner. He is sweating profusely, and his face looks red. He stumbles and falls to the floor with a groan.
Eddie, get out here.
Emily yells. Eddie comes running from the kitchen into the dining room.
What? What's the matter?
Eddie asks, not having noticed the new arrival yet. Emily just points to the stranger passed out on the floor.
Call 911. Call 911.
Eddie barks as he rushes over to the unconscious man, as Emily and Mr. Wilkins stare in shock. Eddie checks for a pulse, which, although very faint, he finds.
He's still alive. Call an ambulance. This guy needs a hospital.
Eddie says to Emily, who then runs to get her cell phone. The stranger seems to come around momentarily as he looks at Eddie with a grave look on his face.
Don't trust them.
The man gasps and then collapses. Eddie checks the man's breathing, but he detects none, and then checks his pulse again, but this time does not find one.
He's gone.
I couldn't get any cell reception, and the landline isn't working.
Emily says as she walks over to Eddie.
I'll stay here with him. You go get Sheriff Beckett.
I'll wait here too. I'm a witness.
Emily, flip the close sign on your way out.
I'll be back as soon as I can.
Emily states as she runs behind the counter to get her purse. In a blur of motion, the seemingly dead stranger sits bolt upright, grabs Eddie by the shoulders, and bites his right forearm. Eddie screams in pain and shock as he struggles to get the man off of him, or at least get him to release the vice-like grip his jaws have on Eddie's arm. Emily screams, then drops her purse. She tries to look around for something to use as a weapon to help Eddie, but is too scared to think clearly. The terrified Mr. Wilkins staggers backwards a few steps and stumbles into a booth. Without warning, the doors to the diner are kicked in, and a man wearing a black military-style uniform runs into the diner. He stops a few feet from where Eddie is fighting for his life against the man who tried to help, who now has eyes that are bloodshot and a mouth dripping drool like a rabid dog. The soldier unholsters his sidearm and aims at the raging man's head. He pulls the trigger. The bullet rockets through the man's skull, splattering his brain across the few nearby booths. The man slumps lifelessly to the ground.
Who the hell are you, and what the hell just happened?
Emily shouts at the soldier. The soldier approaches Emily as he reholsters his sidearm.
Colonel Davis Flint, U.S. Army Intelligence. We have a little bit of a situation here.
Little bit of a situation? That son of a bitch went to town on my arm like it was a drumstick at Thanksgiving dinner, and you call that a little bit of a situation?
Eddie asks while trying to stop his wound from bleeding by putting pressure on it with diner napkins.
I think the boy's right. We've gone way the hell beyond a little bit of a situation.
That man was a researcher at a nearby military facility and was exposed to an experimental virus. One of the early symptoms is an increased paranoia. He became convinced we were out to get him and fled the facility. We tracked him here to your diner.
That's it. I quit. I'm going home.
Emily declares as she gathers her things and starts to head for the door.
I'm afraid you can't do that.
And why not?
Because we don't know if the pathogen can be transmitted by airborne means. Any of you could already be infected, and your friend with the bite most certainly is. I have a team on the way from the lab with the antidote to the virus. Once you take that and your blood shows no trace of the virus, you will be free to return to your homes. But until then, you are all under quarantine.
Emily, Eddie, and Mr. Wilkins all exchange looks to gauge each other's reactions. They all seem nervous, and Eddie is obviously in a great deal of pain.
I'm going to go outside and radio my men to find out their ETA. You all just have a seat and relax. This will all be over soon.
The soldier turns around and heads outside the diner.
I don't trust this guy.
Come on, Eddie. He works for the government.
Exactly.
He did say that increased paranoia is how the disease starts to show itself, and that you were infected from your bite.
Yeah, you're probably just feeling the paranoia starting up. Just breathe and try to relax until those soldiers get here.
This is just the best Christmas Eve ever. First, Ellen leaves, and then I get infected with some zombie virus. What a craptastic day this has been.
I'm so sorry, Eddie. I didn't know.
It's not like I felt like talking about it.
I'm going to try the phones again. Mr. Wilkins, you stay with Eddie for a minute until I get back.
Emily says authoritatively, and then heads for the diner's back office. Mr. Wilkins seems uneasy.
So, my condolences on your wife.
Condolences? She left me. She didn't die.
I'm sorry.
Did she send you?
Excuse me?
Did Ellen send you here to spy on me? She did, didn't she?
Eddie barks at the old man, who shrinks back in fear.
Just try to relax, son. This is the virus talking, not you.
Mr. Wilkins says, trying to soothe an agitated Eddie. Eddie gets up and starts to walk threateningly towards Mr. Wilkins. He is dripping with sweat, and his eyes look bloodshot and disoriented.
When you report back to your master, tell her that I'm doing just fine without her. In fact, leaving was the best thing she could have done for me.
Eddie says defiantly. Mr. Wilkins trembles as Eddie stands before him, looking like a lion about to pounce. He wants to call out for help, but is simply too terrified to do so. Just as it seems as if Eddie is going to go in for the kill, he gasps and slumps to the ground. Mr. Wilkins rushes to check for any sign of a pulse or breathing, but it seems as if Eddie didn't make it long enough to get the antidote. Mr. Wilkins stands up and looks down sorrowfully at Eddie.
Hey, Mr. Wilkins, how's Eddie?
Emily asks as she comes back out into the dining room. Mr. Wilkins can't find the words to tell her that Eddie is gone, and so just shakes his head.
Oh my God. Eddie?
Emily gasps in shock. Suddenly, Eddie rises to his feet behind Mr. Wilkins.
Mr. Wilkins, run! Behind you!
What? Huh?
Before Mr. Wilkins can even see the danger he is in, Eddie grabs him from behind and bites down on his shoulder, causing him to scream in agony. Hearing Mr. Wilkins scream, the soldier runs back into the diner and draws his weapon. He fires a well-aimed shot directly through the center of Eddie's head, causing it to explode like a watermelon.
Oh my God. Mr. Wilkins, are you okay?
Emily asks Mr. Wilkins as she grabs some diner napkins to help stop the bleeding.
I guess I'm the next one to go.
Don't worry, old man. My team will be here any moment, and they will have the antidote. We'll get you both inoculated, and then we'll see about patching up that wound of yours.
The soldier says, trying to calm the civilians. The sound of jeeps and helicopters can be heard. The searchlights from the helicopters occasionally shoot blindingly in through the diner's windows.
See? My men are here. Everything is going to be just fine.
A soldier in a similar uniform, only in gray, and topped with a helmet, comes into the diner with a small box, which he hands to the soldier in black.
We brought the item you requested, sir.
Thank you, soldier.
The soldier in black replies as he opens the box. Inside the box are several hypodermic needles filled with a clear solution.
I think we should start with you.
The soldier in black says to Mr. Wilkins as he removes one of the needles from the box. As the soldier nears him, Mr. Wilkins notices a small skull and crossbones printed on the vial, causing him to panic, since that typically indicates poison.
No. Get away from me with that. It's not an antidote. It's poison.
Mr. Wilkins raves as he backs away from the soldier.
Sir, please calm down. We're only trying to help.
Mr. Wilkins quickly charges the soldier in black and pulls the gun from his holster. He aims the gun at him, and a gunshot rings out. Only it wasn't Mr. Wilkins who fired the shot. The newly arrived soldier assessed the situation and determined he needed to take immediate action. He drew his gun and fired on the old man, shooting him through the heart.
Emily, don't trust them.
Mr. Wilkins says pleadingly, and then drops lifelessly to the floor. Noticing that Emily looks uneasy, the soldier in black realizes that if he does not calm her down, he is going to lose any confidence he has garnered with her.
Emily, it's going to be all right.
The soldier in black says as he starts to slowly approach her, still holding the needle. Emily looks around at the various dead bodies on the floor of the diner, most of whom she knew quite well, and seems unsure of what to do. Mr. Wilkins' final words run through her head, and a feeling in the pit of her stomach tells her that he was right.
I want to see a doctor first. I'd feel much better if I talked to a doctor.
Emily says timidly. The soldier in black draws his gun and fires a shot through the center of Emily's forehead.
You should have just taken the morphine. It would have been a much less painful way to go.
The soldier says to Emily's corpse. The soldier in black turns and exits the diner. As soon as he gets outside, he signals two of his men over to him.
Burn it down. Orders are to leave no evidence behind.
The soldiers immediately head over to a nearby jeep and grab gas cans from the back of it. They pour gasoline around the outside of the building and set it ablaze with flares.
All right, men. This situation has been contained. It's time to head back to base.
The soldier in black commands his troops. The soldier in black turns on his radio, and the song "Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire" plays. The other soldiers get back in their jeeps, and they all ride off into the desert night, leaving behind them the smoldering remains of Melville's diner, now destroyed, along with any evidence of their project to weaponize human casualties in a war.
I hope you've enjoyed your journey into the Nightmare Realm. Congratulations. You've returned to the safety of the real world. Haven't you?